Thank you so much, Jeroen. I love to see when people apply their own kind of, again, viewpoints about how they see the world, their own kind of mental models to help add structure to this, you know, uh, this vast conundrum that can be generative AI. I mean, do you have any similar models or things that you find you do every time you're making a new prompt, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I think taking best practices and looking at what others have done is partially what's so great about this movement. So much of it is open source, whether it's what Jeroen's sharing or, Professor Synapse and these different types of ways of prompting. There's best practices for sure, and getting these info from people using the products every day is great.
Oh, it seems like it's great to see too, though, that there are some common themes that
Yeah.
emerge, like when we're talking about instructions, when roles. It allows some, at least some possibility that we're going to be able to reproduce these results and keep them consistent moving forward. And again, thanks for the shout out to our Professor Synapse prompt. I'll share that in the comments. It's a multi-agent prompt. Anyone can feel free to use in ChatGPT. So ChatGPT prompts itself. Um, anyway, we're coming close to the end here, but we have one more great presentation from you for you guys from Peter Kestenholz. He's the founder and MVP of Fast Track Architect. 19 years of experience working with a huge, broad portfolio of clients like Microsoft, expert in Azure, OpenAI, Microsoft Copilot, and he's going to be demoing some of his use cases and workflows for us today. Ton of deep expertise as a tech entrepreneur, and we're really, really excited to hear a little bit from Peter here, and then we'll have one more Q&A and some closing remarks. So here's Peter.
My name is Peter, and I'm the founder of Projectum, a Microsoft partner for the past 20 years, doing project portfolio management and strategy execution. I'm here today because I'm a Microsoft MVP, head of our innovation team, and also very focused on how AI has enabled our customers to get more creative. In today's example, I'm going to present how we can use ChatGPT, also made available through Microsoft, to help our strategy officers create new strategic plans and ideas for initiatives. So let's get started. When I open up my browser here, we can go, of course, into OpenAI. From ChatGPT, we can use 3.5 or 4. Let's just start with 3.5 and paste in one prompt, which I've seen for quite a few times, is quite useful. Act as a strategy officer, so that's the context, in a large global pharma company or something else. Use the OKR framework to break down strategy and supporting initiatives or ideas. I've also been given the task of helping the organization grow online sales in the APAC region by 20% from 2024 to 2025. I also want to create a hierarchy of OKRs, so objectives and key results. So one objective, 3 key results, and ideally also for each key result, 2 initiatives or proposed initiatives we could do. And for each of these initiatives, I then want to have it also estimate the man hours it would take to do the work and the primary role that would be needed to complete the work. And finally, just for the fun, add a relevant emoji and also, if possible, a link to where the project managers who will take over the initiatives work can learn more about the type of initiatives we're about to do. So lots of things happening, but let's just try and hit the push button. And because this is, of course, GPT 3.5, it's pretty fast, but also not necessarily up to speed. But at least it's trying now, as you can see, to create the key results that supports the overall ambitions for growth in APAC. So let's see up here. Increase online sales in APAC. Yes. Key result 1, improve the website conversion rate. That makes sense, by 15%. Here's one initiative that could help you do this, and the effort it might take, and the primary role you should find in that team who is going to execute the work. Also, you could add a link directly through to some website article or case materials where the users can, or the project managers can learn more about it. Now, to take this to the next level, of course, if we go into my Power App, so I have a Power App because I'm a Microsoft partner. In here as well, I have access, of course, to ChatGPT. And there are 2 ways I can sort of manage my work here and get some answers to some questions. One is that I can use sort of a chatbot that we have created, where I can say hi, and then I can sort of control using Power Virtual Agents what the user should be able to do. For instance, creating some data or projects, ideas, and so forth, learn something, or maybe just chat with ChatGPT. So again, I could use this and just quickly paste in the same thing you saw before, hit enter, give it a few seconds, and it's going to use the Azure OpenAI GPT endpoint. So same thing as OpenAI, except it's inside your company's own Azure tenant. So let's see. Here we go. Same thing happens. It tries to create the key results, the initiatives, the effort it takes, and also some links to where you can learn more. So it actually works quite well, also in sort of a chatbot context within my little Power App here. Now, moving away from this, some users also want even more rich experience, ideally using, of course, GPT-4. And for those, of course, you also have the Bing option, where you've probably seen this before, but where you can also go in and essentially paste the same thing as I just did in this window. But this will use ChatGPT-4 out of the box. Also secure, it also says that, because it stays again inside your company account, company tenant. So here you can add, I would say, more confidential content, obviously, than what you could on the OpenAI website. Let's see if it's done soon. This is GPT-4, so probably it will take more time than you saw with GPT 3.5. And here we go. So it starts again with some more rich text because it's a better GPT model. But again, it's essentially the same thing, trying to estimate what it takes to do this, adding some links to where you can learn more. You can also, by the way, go full screen by clicking here, and then you will see it from this view, same thing as you saw before, which is pretty cool. Just give it a few seconds. Here we go. And then you could sort of continue the chat here if you wanted to. So same thing as before. Now, the thing that I want to show, which is probably next level to some, is not so much about the prompting, but where we can use the prompting. So let's move away from ChatGPT and also Bing and back to the Power App. So if you had an application where, for instance, you had your objectives in the tool, let's open this one up, and you wanted to also use prompting and GPT directly inside the application, you could, for instance, click New here. And here in Power PPM, I have preloaded my views here so that the first thing I need to do is simply give it a name. And that could be the same as before. Grow the APAC online sales by 20%, let's say in 2024. And a description as well could be the same thing as this, essentially. Or maybe this is just grow online sales, and then down here you have some more details. Grow the online APAC sales by 20% in 2024, and that's it. Then I could just say, well, this is going to start from now until end of 2024. So this is just Power Apps, Dataverse, Microsoft, just doing its thing. But what I then can do is use ChatGPT as a button or as a toggle, so that if I click here and click yes, it triggers the creation of some supporting text or ideation, so that by only having these two inputs, and if I click refresh, here we go, where I can see increase APAC sales, ideas to do this is first of all do this, then we need to do this, this is the duration, this is the effort it takes, skills, and so forth. More or less the same as before. Now, one thing is doing it as text input, and you can then delete it or use it or not. But the other aspect is maybe you want this text to be created or injected directly into the application. So down here you also see the same key results. Let me just refresh. It probably wasn't done. Like this. And now you have increased, let's just zoom out, online sales by 20% in 24, by 50,000 units, by 2 million. So different examples of OKRs. It's not pretty smart right now because it doesn't have enough context. I think over here we should have added more. But the point is, by having this input, I can get both text and also an output. So essentially created directly inside the application. And then the key result officer or strategy officer can take it from here and build on top. The essence of this is that it all goes down inside Power Automate in Microsoft. This means that if I click edit on my flow, because this is the flow that runs behind the scenes, if I click edit here, you can see how I'm actually building or constructing the automation so that users will end up having just one button. And here, for instance, you can see that every time someone modifies what is called the strategic objectives in Dataverse or Power Apps, If the person says yes to generate something with AI, so that's a true. If that's the case, then I want to create something with GPT. And then here you can see what I've done. I have primed the prompt, so to speak, by adding some text here, which is essentially the prompt, so that the only thing the users have to do is provide a name of the strategy and a description. And obviously we could have added any field we have in the application right here by simply going down and finding all the information available. Who's the owner, start dates, end dates, whatever custom fields we've added to the data we could have pulled in. Once this is done, it should then also JSON format and wrap the output in a certain way with an array and some data buckets, which means essentially that I want to pull out what are the key results. And that is essentially what happens below here, that I take the JSON that is given from the ChatGPT function, and from here creating two buckets, so objectives and key results, so that I can pull out my key results down here, and for each of these create sort of a strategy output down here. There we go. So key results. So first I need to figure out what is the strategic objective where we are creating these things. And then we take the text that was given. So let's go back here to this view. From this text, we then take the key results. So that's the name here. And we use this to create all the rows, so 3 in our case, because we asked for 3 up here. Just a second. Here we go. We ask for 3 key results, so 3. That's why we get 3. If I wanted 4, I would have written 4. So this was the example of how I can, with just one button, have users provide simple input, have the system automate both the GPT text creation, like this, but also converting it into data, and in real time injecting it into your systems if this is something you are up for. Of course, a lot more can be done with what is called the ChatGPT to text or text to ChatGPT function. So this is just one example, and I would expect a lot of more examples to come in the near future. Thank you for watching. This was just 10 minutes. If you want to know more, you can follow me on LinkedIn. My name is Peter Kestenholz. Have a great conference.
Thanks so much, Peter. I'm going to take this opportunity now to invite Dan, Peter, and Jeroen in for our last Q&A session. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your really insightful presentations. You know, kind of the common theme I took away from each of those is your unique perspectives to design and then implement generative AI and you know, the application of prompt engineering throughout. So I think a good place to then start is with, you know, the solutions and API architect over there, Dan. How do you kind of see the future of API design evolving with these advancements of prompt engineering and AI? You know, I feel like a lot of the API underlying frameworks we've used have been in place for years.
Yeah, actually, it was some kind of experiment we did with a customer of us. So we really thought, okay, let's do something totally different as we normally do, because you have actually tools available that could help you in that place. But now we do something different because we want to be more faster, and we don't want to do things where we actually don't know who is actually using the stuff afterwards. So it was really kind of an experiment, and it was actually successful. So other customers of us came up and saying, okay, this looks interesting what you're talking about. What did you do? And in the end, it's not some kind of magic. It's just using what is ChatGPT actually for. When you have the model 4, it's so easy to really do reviews with it, because in the end, when you have the capability to really build your own large language model, it's so easy then to really rely on the stuff you already have. So you just use the stuff you are used to actually, and let somebody else do the reviewing, and nobody else has to do it actually with their own eyes, because it's sometimes complicated. People don't see things, and an AI is sometimes more predictive in that case.
Do you see that as, you know, having some certain challenges with inherently relying more and more on AI and prompt engineering in that API design process? Are there certain things that we should do as maybe not as ardent practitioners as you are, but as people that want to leverage these tools nonetheless to mitigate some of those kind of pitfalls and challenges?
Yeah, actually, it's what I present is actually it's quite hard. You shouldn't create personas or something else by an AI, because it's not really fitting so far. Because you need the real people on your side, not saying, okay, I build a persona or something like that. So really relying on real data and then extracting the things and build things up on the data itself. Not to say really, oh, we have to build personas. It's so easy to use ChatGPT for that. You shouldn't do that, because there will be no real fit in the end, because it's just an imagination by the AI, which could be not the real persona in an organization actually. So it's really that's one of the tricky parts, and the other tricky part is really this kind of API designs. So really having a look at the API description, and when you do this with an AI, there are so many errors and there are so many mistakes, because case sensitive stuff. So there are a lot of things missing, and even relying on the version of the open API standard, it's always saying it's 3.00, so you really have to specify it. So it gets more complicated for people to really use it actually in the end, because you have to be high technical to really create good description by an AI actually. And these are, I think, the most problematic things, because in the end you need a model to be really trained, and it has to learn about your own actually ideas and even your own environment to really use it in the end. That's the most important thing in there.
And these models don't have the context of the world around them, so you have to almost really kind of things that are inherent and implicitly obvious to you that you may not even be actively considering, that needs to be channeled into the nuances of the prompt when you're building with these tools. I think that's a great segue to some of the stuff that Jeroen put forth. Dan and I were just chatting during the break there, Jeroen. Like I love seeing the different perspectives of people that have gone like, hey, here's the way I organize building these things to get a repetitive result. But I thought I'd love to hear a perspective of when you're developing and building your solution and your framework. Can you share an example maybe where like a really subtle change in a prompt made a huge difference in the output?
Yeah, I think this is a really hard question, of course, because what I really feel like is that if you have the things that I described within the framework in place, that you can go pretty far, but it's all with context. So I think what was just shared is pretty much in line with that. People are a lot asking on LinkedIn and other places like, do I lose my job because of all those generative AI things, right? So that's a really hot topic right now. And I don't think so, because I also saw in another session, will prompt engineering really be a job or something, or how do you look at that? I think it's a skill that really can enhance your productivity. So for example, I am a full stack developer. I'm a developer as a profession. I know how to describe what I want to do. And someone who doesn't write a code or something, it's really hard for them to do the same. So what I did in a previous session is actually build a calculation application. And I did want to have a really nice looking front end, right? So if I didn't describe anything, then it did just have some input fields and some buttons to click on it, and it did work, but it was not what I did expect. So when I was really pointing to, I want to use the Bootstrap CSS framework, and I want to have this as a backend like PHP or whatever you want to use, and the HTML should look like clean code, and all those practices should be in place, then you really get the output that you desire. So your goal will be met. And that is really, I think, the key takeaway here, that context is key, and your profession is still really intact there, because you have the knowledge to actually share that context to ChatGPT.
Yep, I think you're absolutely right. Context is king. I the way I demonstrate self-attention whenever I'm teaching to people that are just like, wait, what's ChatGPT? Like, literally just add one word to a sentence and then show how the next 5 words are completely different. But the sentence in and of itself is asking for the same thing. That's really fascinating. I think one of the things though that you might be able to share your unique perspective on, Jeroen, is these AI models, these tools, they're changing and adapting so fast. What do you do, or what do you think is a good practical solution to update our skills so they remain relevant as these models get easier and improve over time, or new capabilities get added? I mean, I feel like I'm going to need to learn how to prompt GPT-4 vision in a very different way, because it's much more of an interaction than it is set of instructions.
Yeah. I agree. I think following the right people, for example, platforms as LinkedIn is really helpful because a lot of people are sharing knowledge about that. So I think stating about ChatGPT Vision, I got it as of today in my account available. And so probably most of the people will get it around these days. But I already saw people actually sharing their architecture. They just wrote it out on a whiteboard and then actually making a photo with their phone and then sending that to ChatGPT to actually create the context. And then you can actually do a lot of new things. So when I got it in my account, I got it available and I could actually use it. I directly had some examples or inspiration where I could test it on. So, and that will really provide your learning experience.
I'd love to open the same question up to everyone, because I think all of you guys may have a perspective here, because as we build things with AI, the tools will make things easier, but also will the tools then be able to pick up the nuances of our instructions? I think it's an interesting example of this. If you happen to have DALL-E 3 in your version of ChatGPT Plus right now, any prompt you put in there is automatically optimized by DALL-E 3 into multiple different descriptions, whether you ask for it or not. So that opens up this interesting kind of dichotomy where it's like, well, I'm going to work really hard on the skills I need to develop to be able to chat with the AI and give it instructions in a very specific way. But if you're not going to receive those instructions because you've been optimized for the masses, well, that's an interesting struggle in and of itself. So let me kick it over to Peter first. Same question. How do you think we keep our skills relevant as these models evolve and improve?
But I think I work mainly with, let's say, business advisory. So taking larger enterprises and making them capable of setting up a center of excellence. Like in any other matter you see in technology that's moving fast, you need some sort of a central function. And I think it's not up for our let's say customers and the companies I work for to have all the employees become prompt masters. To be honest, I think that would be an unfair and like a dream that will never really kick in. It's something where, of course, I'm not biased, but I'm speaking in some ways with the Microsoft voice here. And the way I use Microsoft is to make sure there is a place for the non-developers to go into AI and sort of take over how it responds, so that when, let's say, the not so experienced user asks, let's say, a strange question or maybe even a stupid question, we can sort of control that they still get a smart output, because we have primed it so hard so that it understands the context of the entire business, so that they don't have to put in the context. So I do agree that context is king, but I also believe that it's unfair to expect that everyone will be the king of context, because to do that, you would have to be a senior with 10 years of experience in that business. So I'm trying to sort of see if we can sneak that in as a central function to prime all these prompts, so that even the bad prompts gets a smart response. And that's sort of how I drive, the engagements I do today. And it's,
I definitely want to come back to that, but I want to give Dan an opportunity to respond to the same thing, because I think he'll have a unique perspective to share with us.
Yeah, actually, I'm totally with Peter, because in the end, you need in the areas we are working. Actually, we're working with big enterprises in the API world. So they really have a huge amount of data available where they are not really capable of. So we are always triggering the people to really think about what is your core business. And it's totally difficult for them to really make sure what is their core business. And even if they have an AI available, it will be still hard for them, because the people are not so trained to think in data. Actually, they are just trained to have an idea what could be the requirements of something. So we normally building with people in companies always not these reusable APIs. So they have a particular use case, and we force them to really rethink the use case again and again and again to really make it reusable in the end, not to build something that will be used by one person or by one machine for something that is not really the thing you should do. And this is really something where I think we should be still remain with the capabilities we have, and maybe others have to really bring value to companies actually, and say, okay, you can do this, but you should be aware of all the contexts you need, because this is the hard fact. I can do prompting even if I don't have any context, but it would be nonsense actually to really think about it, that I can use something like that in the end. So it's really hard, I would say. So there will be still the reminder of people having these skills to really stay there and be actually advisors or enablers in the end, because it's actually hard.
Human on the loop, maybe,
Yeah.
as opposed to completely out of it. I want to take your comments there and kick it back to Peter, just because your perspective as, building stuff for Microsoft so long. I mean, there's really not more enterprise than that. I'd be curious to hear though, and I'm glad you brought up like OKRs in your example specifically. How have you seen kind of how Power BI, Power Automations, the application of those tools and technology kind of change as in terms of project and strategy management and setting and achieving OKRs? How have they changed now that generative AI is on the scene?
Well, I think there are good two questions, I guess. One is building a strategy, and the other one is building your project plan. So it's like company-wide top-down approach, and then it's more like how do I, as a project manager, do better in the company I work for. And if we start with the latter, you could say that I have been introducing like template-based approaches to everything since I was 20, and I'm 42 now, so it's 22 years now. I'm still counting. And every time we had to sort of have people do it the best way possible, we gave them templates. It's always a matter of some expert somewhere in the business setting up what they would say, this is the template of all templates, right? Which is very much an inside perspective to everything. Not really trying to look at what the competitors are doing, or you don't even know it, and you don't have time to keep up with everything that goes on the internet, or PhD studies or whatever. So today, the companies I have that are aggressive on AI have sort of let go of the templates, or if they have templates, it's sort of a reference point, so that at least they sort of have, here are the phases or the milestones that we should all comply with. And then you add an extra layer on top, which would then be the AI thing. So it's not AI out of control, it's AI on top of a template. Which sets the boundaries, I guess. And then they can sort of write their way through or upload a business case to further explain what it is they're trying to achieve, and then have ChatGPT, in this case, render the full project plan in real time. It's super much possible. It's not very complicated, to be honest, and it doesn't require a lot of data. It just requires what is called a good old VBS, or work breakdown structure, made by someone. So templates is changing a lot. And strategically, I think it's the whole creative space, from waiting for people to submit good ideas to more aggressively saying, we have a problem. We need to fix it before end of March. There's a new GDPR policy being rolled out in the EU next year. We all know that. Okay. Come up with 25 ideas, put them in a SWOT analysis, rank them accordingly, put some budget behind them. That would take forever to ask people to get that input. Here we just get it for free within 30 seconds, and we can start our management meeting. So I think we'll see more and more people letting go of the good old Post-its. And it's not because we don't enjoy being creative. It's just, I think we can be creative with a better starting point, where all that trivial work has been done beforehand. So I do see management meetings going on with already now ChatGPT. They can probably do even better if they learn to prompt. That's why we have this conference. And then we have the project managers who will become more productive, I assume.
That's absolutely the way I see it as well. You're spot on. We had a good question from the audience. They were curious if that app that you demoed, Peter, is available anywhere. I think someone may want
of
to
course.
slot that into their Power BI.
Yes, it's definitely available. It's in the marketplace also for Microsoft for the last 3 years. It's called Power PPM, and it's of course much more than AI. It is project portfolio and strategy management in a Power app. Awesome. Fairly easy to acquire and also spin up a trial. So go to Microsoft App Source or App Store and then search for Power PPM and you'll find it.
Power PPM, awesome. Well, last question that we've asked everybody here. Given your familiarity and hands-on approach to building and using these AI tools, predict the future for us. What do you see as emerging trends that you're excited about? What are things that you think is going to transpire or take place in this field that is maybe going to transform the work that you do, or how everyone interacts with AI? Jeroen, why don't we start with you?
Sorry, with me? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Jeroen. I don't know.
No problem. I think this is a really hard question because it's evolving so rapidly that it's almost you cannot imagine how fast this goes. So it's pretty difficult, but I think it will be really part of everything that is text or image based or something, and then I'm talking about coding or management things, it will be really part of it. So the things about Microsoft, which I'm sharing a lot, is that it will be in all the Teams applications or the Office, etc. That will really change how we are working, because why should you still do the boilerplating or whatever you're doing in all those tools if generative AI can do it for you? But I still think that will take some time, because I see a lot of companies still not using it. But I really hope that those conferences, talks, and sharing knowledge everywhere will change that also for those people. But what really the future will bring us, I don't know. It's hard to say, I think.
No, I think you're spot on there. I believe like McKinsey or one of these big consulting firms did of course, natural language processing experiment of all the Fortune 500 quarterly earnings calls. For AI terminology, AI phrases and words, something around there, only about half of them are even talking about this stuff on their earning calls right now. So, yeah. I mean, you're definitely spot on there that, some people are still going to be using those Post-it notes. They're going to be holding on with both hands, like Peter said. But
maybe nice to add then here is that I'm doing a lot of training sessions as well. And the first time I did it, I was like, I'm going to ask the audience to like an energizer. Have you ever heard about ChatGPT or something like that, right? And I expected everyone to raise their hands because it's on television, on the internet, everywhere while I'm looking, it's available. But actually a lot of people didn't. So I was a bit shocked there, like, oh, wait, maybe I should change my slides the next time to first explain what it is, to have a really nice presentation to follow that up. But yeah, that's a nice thing, I think.
Something like 59 or 60% of people have heard of it, but only about 19% of people have even tried it. So I have to constantly do that whenever I'm talking to a group or people, just like, no, this is the world that we live in and play in on a day-to-day basis. Let's try to take a step back, tell my spouse, hey, do you understand this, or something like that. Dan, I'd love to hear, you try to predict the future for us here with all these advancements.
Actually, it's the same as Jeroen already mentioned. So I think it's quite hard to really say what would happen actually. So I'm doing a lot of things in the API scene and community, and also in what's going on with integration. So a really unsolved topic actually so far, because many people are still lacking stuff, and there is also a big favor in using ChatGPT for that. So there are solutions in the market to predict, oh yeah, I need an integration for this and for that, please build it for me. So there will be more things actually, so the daily work actually, or as I always say, the things that are already solved, to make it more easy to people to access the things actually, not to really think about what I need to integrate stuff. because in the end it's about patterns and everything like that. So it should be quite easy for an AI to really think about that and give a good solution as a starting point, and then evolve from there and move on to really have more flexibility in the end, and to really make, I think, things more easy, because people in the API community are now looking for really technical writers to write documentation for APIs and all the other stuff. So there will be another field actually to really think about and say, okay, that can be also done by an AI, because I don't need people to be trained as a technical writer in the end, but it would be good to have somebody to have an overlook actually and do an editing or something like that. But in the end, it's just writing stuff and understanding things because of semantics and all the other things involved. So I think there's a lot of things that can happen there. I would like to see some things in regards of semantic stuff actually, but who knows what will happen some place.
I mean, I know you're going to stay plenty busy with the sheer volume of AI companies and things that are popping up. I think I saw a stat about 1,000 new companies get formed and launched in the Gen AI space. At some point, someone's going to need to help them connect all the dots together. If you're using a workflow that involves 40 different tools. Peter, would love to hear your perspective, especially from someone that's deploying this for big business solutions.
We have sort of two waves we're going to ride. That's how I see it. Two trends. One is, of course, I'm relying heavily on the bigger technology companies like Microsoft or Google and others to set the scene. They will do that with or without us. So, for instance, 1st of November, most of the Office users can get access to Copilot. So even if they haven't heard about ChatGPT, they will see a Copilot pop up if they have a license, and whoa, what is this? And they start creating content like in a way they've never thought was possible. So that's, of course, going to drive, I think, us away from being so concerned about things to people just starting to use it. Not saying we shouldn't be concerned, but they will use it. So that's one part of it. The other aspect is that if you look at the traffic going on towards OpenAI, we have 1.8 billion website visitors. That was in August, the latest numbers that were out. Out of those 1.8 billion visits, if you look at age, more than 60% were younger than 35. So if you look at it from a sort of a management perspective, the upcoming managers from 35 to when they are like 45, the next 10 years, so to speak, they are already right now, more or less every single one of them, comfortable using ChatGPT today. And they will be the decision makers within the coming years. So it might be that you have this 50 plus age group that have not really tried ChatGPT. But if you're looking at it 10 years ahead from now, well, those who will take the decisions at that point are just sort of AI natives, like we've seen it before with the internet and so on. So that's one aspect. Personally, I look forward to one thing, which strangely enough, I don't see anyone talking about anywhere, which is, why am I still using this keyboard? Why do I have a keyboard? I type slower than I speak, for sure, because I speak sometimes too fast, but it spells better, it writes better, it can do it in whatever language I need. Why do I have a keyboard everywhere? I don't get the idea around a keyboard, let's say 2 years from now. So that's that's why I was thinking about it when I saw that. So I'm thinking,
well, then I wouldn't have a hobby.
Well, for gaming, maybe it's going to be better.
All these poor keycaps will get lonely.
Yeah. No, I think devices will be impacted by AI as well, also in tech, and that's a place where we're not talking that much, but I do think that's going to be impacted as well, long term as well. So
no, I think I'm definitely excited to see how generative AI transforms our devices, so to speak, be it things that we wear or embedded in our phones. I have to imagine that with Microsoft already having Copilot, on your Windows desktop, that's coming very soon. Well,
yes,
gentlemen, thank you so much for your presentations and perspectives today. Truly insightful. We're looking forward to sharing these presentations online. Please go out and reach out to Peter and Dan and Jeroen on the socials. All right. Thank you so much, gents.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
Bye.
Well, here we are, Dan.
Yeah, what a great way to wrap up. Those were awesome way to cap off the day.
I love the applications. What do you think? Give me your 3 takeaways from today. Maybe one from each session, if you can think back that you found the most insightful.
I mean, I think looking back, I think everyone was blown away with what Jesus was able to do. And I think it's still the best generative AI image stuff I've seen done. And so I'm definitely gonna go back over his slides and look at that toolkit again, now seeing what's possible. Hearing from both Mark and Anastasia about using fine tuning and then seeing how these things are used in production, I think was really helpful too. And knowing that you can have fallbacks that aren't AI related for edge cases, I think it was really cool. And then this last one is very practical. I liked, capping it off with Peter's note about, what are we doing with keyboards? I think it puts a interesting question for us all to think about the future of devices and how we interact with AI. And it isn't only going to be through a keyboard. And so I think it was a really cool way to kind of leave things off.
Yeah, that multimodality is definitely going to be more and more on the scene here in the coming weeks and months. Yeah, I have to say the common thing that I was honestly like pretty encouraged by was how almost every speaker, at least in our track, hit upon how the human expert is still the essential part of every equation here, be it a automation one, be it an API one, coding, prompt engineering. Like that is still the key component to give it that context, to apply that. This is no one had anything to say about these things taking over jobs, and I think that was very, very encouraging. So all right, any final words there?
No, I mean, I think that was a really good call out too. And I think, it was also in Jesus' slides where, an AI isn't going to replace your job, but someone who is like equipped with knowing how to use AI might. So I think that's a really good way to kind of look at this as what can the AI do for us and make us better learners, better creators.
And just what opportunities does that open up? I think we get wrapped up in the revenue and expenses, changes and transformations that are going to happen with generative AI. But what happens when all the repetitive stuff that humans aren't good at anyway gets offloaded? What happens to the time and the productivity that's unlocked? And as it relates to like an earning potential, when you have this huge swath of the workforce that's good at critical thinking and emotional intelligence and complex tasks, can now do more of that and be more creative and achieve things when they don't have to, say, compare a 100-page document to another 100-page document for compliance purposes, or spell check a 1,000-page presentation. I mean, just the possibilities there, I think, are the ones that I want to hit on more, and glad to see a lot of our speakers did too.
Totally.
Well, for everyone there that was online, to all our speakers, thank you so very much from everyone here on the conference committee. Dan, I really appreciate you co-hosting track 2. I often kind of like to leave people with the fact that by virtue of us being here, learning how to talk to AI, where we learn how to refine the instructions we give the machine to craft more poignant descriptions for what our end goals are. These skills are inherently applicable to not just talking to the machine. Talk to your coworkers at the same level of expertise and detail that you do when you're crafting a prompt. Interact with your kids or your spouse with that kind of level of thought and care. And I think people will find that by learning how to talk to AI, it will inherently make them more human. So for Dan, for Maxime, for Eric, for Goda, and all our partners at the Prompt Engineering Conference, Wes Shields, signing off in track 2. We'll see you out there.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.